Welcome to Bit About Crypto. I'm David James, the Job Whisperer, and I'm again here hosting another episode of Bit About Crypto and with my co-host, Dave Hampton.
How you doing?
What do we call you?
Robo-recruiter.
Why do we call you that, David?
Because I'm relentless.
He's so relentless.
I'm relentless.
He's so relentless. All right, you got this dog. You put it in the backyard. You say, "There's no way this dog's getting out of this," and dig. He'll find a way. That's how Dave Hampton does recruiting.
So it can't be done, and that gets me going.
Yeah, and welcome to Bit About Crypto. So for those of you in the audience, Bit About Crypto was designed specifically for people who wanted to know about crypto and just didn't know who to ask, right? And there's so many people that want to know about crypto. And they're getting bad advice, and nobody wants to feel foolish when they don't know something, right? And it takes a learning curve, and there's no really good way to learn other than like mentorship, right? One person talking to another, and there's a lot of bad advice out there. There's a lot of ripoff out there, and so the genesis of Bit About Crypto came from my love of cryptocurrency and blockchain and how it's going to change so many things. Not to mention sound money. Sound money is one of them, but also transparency. And there's a lot of words you can actually use. And so also we're gonna go early right now, and let's just get a word from our sponsor, Travis, our engineer. Who is our sponsor?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's blockchainrecruiters.net.
Oh, is that who it is this week? Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, Blockchain Recruiter. So if you're looking for a job in crypto, right, you can find me on Twitter. If you're not using Twitter, then you're not working in blockchain, okay? You can go work at the mall. So I'm at the BTC Recruiter, right? And I'm old, and I got a Twitter account, and I tweet, okay? So if I'm tweeting, you can do it. And I'm pretty much the oldest guy in blockchain ever, other than Michael Sartain. So, yeah, and you can also go old school. You can send me a resume, David J, at blockchainrecruiters.net. That's net, not the one that starts with a C, okay? Because remember, if you don't put a net on it, you won't be caught in my net. And remember, it's not who you know, it's who I know. And if you're actually working a blockchain project and you need people, you need the best talent, you need them found, enrolled, and compelled, you call me and, of course, Robo-Recruiter over here.
You can find me at Dave at blockchainrecruiters.net.
Yeah, and we will get them to sign on the line that is dotted, right, Dave?
Yes, sir.
So speaking of Daves, it's all Dave. Dave Spurko, going to give a shout out to Dave Spurko, Tampa, Florida. He actually sent me an article. Let me pull it up here. And the article was literally, looking for a job in cryptocurrency, do these 3 things to stand out. And I'm going to say, okay, this will be good because we're podcasting this week, today, and blah, blah, blah. Understand the fundamentals, right? And there's so many people that don't understand the fundamentals. They just buy Shiba Inu or they buy Doge, right? Because, you know, the guy with the tattoo on his neck at the 7-Eleven, he's buying them.
Following the hype, yeah.
That's correct. That's number 1. Number 2, highlight your unique perspective. And I'm going to talk to everybody out there. Southwest, they hire for attitude and they train to aptitude, right?
Right.
And the thing about blockchain, if you're interested in this and you want to know, start learning as much as you can and bring your relevant skills to what you've learned in life, to what you do now, to that thing. And number 3, have a proactive attitude, right? Yep. Or as Stephen Covey says, keep the end result in mind.
Right.
You know, and the whole purpose, the way that Bit About Crypto starts, we bring in people and we talk about them as a human interest story, right? And so people can go, I'm like this person, I'm not like this person. But what do they all have in common? They have crypto or an awareness of crypto or the understanding of crypto. And as we've said, there's only 2 kinds of people in the world, those that are into crypto and those that will be, right? And so John, our host, John Orlando, he's doing homework right now. He was given an assignment. He said, I've got a great guest for you. And he says, you got to get this guy on the show. And rarely does he actually pop up with a guest. And I said, okay. And I just wanted to see him sight and seen. And just before the show, I actually pulled up his LinkedIn profile. And I spoke to him briefly before he got here. And I could tell he's got a great gift for loquacity. I think he's uber smart. And I just want to welcome the graduate of the University of Texas, former officer of the Air Force, Captain Michael Sartain.
Hey guys, man, I appreciate this. This is great. This has always been so I'm a fund manager, and crypto's always been something that I've had to be educated on and invest in.
So before we get into crypto and your awareness of it and how you compare, being a fund manager, there's incredible relevance to, what's going on and what's going to go on in other happenings. But let's just talk about you, right? So let's talk about where you were born and raised in Dallas?
Yeah, so I'm from East Dallas. I went to high school in a pretty rough neighborhood, but I grew up in Lakewood. So it's like, I don't know if you've ever been to Dallas. It's kind of a...
Dude, I know where you went, man.
For sure.
I went to I taught at W.T. White.
There you go. So you know. So
I went to high school in Fruitvale.
Okay.
No, I'm totally
nice.
kidding. I just know that that's a rough neighborhood.
So for David, I lived north of Swiss Avenue. I went to high school south of Swiss Avenue.
Yep.
So you kind of understand the bifurcation of my growing up.
Swiss Avenue, the demarcation line?
It kind of is. For East Dallas, it is the demarcation line.
Yeah.
If you live, home prices decline vociferously once you go south of Swiss.
Talk to me about your socioeconomics, like mom, dad, what they did, how brothers, sisters.
So my dad was a financial planner. My mother was a nurse for about 40 years, and my grandfather's a professor at Southern Methodist University. He was a business professor.
So you were brought into consciousness of intellectual people with just a gift for curiosity and what is that, right?
Definitely a gift for curiosity. Finance also. Bill O'Brien, I believe that's his name, the guy who wrote How to Make Money in Stocks. He's one of my grandfather's students. And Lamar Hunt, also the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, who's also one of the students of my grandfather over at Southern Methodist. And I've always had these guys that were really understanding of finance, which sort of turned me off to it. To be honest with you, first 20, 30 years of my life, I had no interest in finance whatsoever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it was one of these things that happened until I got out of the military, where I became very aware of, hey, okay, this is what works. This is what actually doesn't work. Well, for me, because in college I studied so much astronomy and physics, the idea of being able to model things and the mathematics of it made more sense than just sort of picking patterns on a chart. So that's the reason why I actually became more interested in finance, because I started to understand some ideas about it.
So let's talk about grade school, high school, brothers, sisters, how many?
So I have a younger brother. He is in the cannabis space.
Okay.
Not necessarily legal or illegal.
He's an entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur in that space. My brother's really smart. He's probably the funniest guy I know. But I have one younger brother who still lives in Dallas. And then my father passed away in 2006. And then my mother still lives in Garland, Texas, even right now.
Okay.
And I have 35 cousins. Most of them are Colombian, from Medellin, Colombia. And slowly they have immigrated to the States. Almost all of them live in Texas.
Yeah, I got cousins who moved from Guatemala. They moved during that Texas snow S storm, right? It was just it's like, welcome to the USA, man.
When the snowmageddon that happened in Texas.
2013?
No, this last winter, the entire power grid in Texas.
Remember
the snowstorm.
Give a shout out to Jeffrey Berthium, right? He actually works for Southwest as a data programmer. He told me that he and his girlfriend, who works for Amazon, literally were on the floor in blankets trying to keep warm with each other. When the power would go on, they would turn the oven on and try and get some heat, get some food cooked. I mean, it was brutal.
It was crazy. People had $17,000 heating bills after that. Yeah, it was a really crazy situation. But anyway.
So you're of Colombian descent?
Yeah, so my father's family is British-ish, right? So there's a mutt of different Irish, Scottish, British, that kind of thing. The Sartains from Suffolk, England.
And your mom's Colombian?
My mother's from Medellin, Colombia. Oh, she's from La Union, Colombia, in Antioquia.
So you're the first generation from your mom. Your mom.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So did your mom speak to you in Spanish?
She did, and I didn't really pick up on a lot of it. Maybe at some point I did, but I can understand Spanish almost completely fluently and have a hard time speaking.
It's funny because my wife is Mexican, and she just says, I don't speak Spanish. And she understands it when she has to. But I asked her parents about that. I said, why wouldn't you speak in Spanish? She says, we wanted our kids to assimilate, right? Because in the 60s and the 70s, that she wanted everything. And so I kind of always asked that question for cultural awareness. So do you do sports?
Yeah, so I played outside linebacker and tight end, and then I was captain of the wrestling team, and then I played a little bit of basketball.
What weight in wrestling?
177.
Yeah, you were a little big. I was captain of the wrestling team, but I was 121, and a lot shorter then.
Well, I was 160 something, but I wrestled 170.
You wrestled? You went up?
I wrestled 3 different weight classes because we didn't have a wrestling team before I got to this school, and I was a jiu-jitsu instructor Aikido jiu-jitsu instructor at the time, and then I then went and started a wrestling. We started a wrestling team. There was another guy at the school way better than me, and he was teaching me how to wrestle, but I knew how to grapple, and so we did that for a while, and then I ran track and I threw shot put and the hurdles.
If we could afford this guy, he'd be a great recruiter, but we can't afford him.
That's right.
So anyhow, okay. So as you're in high school and figuring out what you're going to be in life, I'm only speaking for me. I was looking at college for a degree, not an education.
Yeah.
Right. Tell me about what. Did you go to college right out of high school?
Yeah. So for me, because I was 12-4A, that's where. I think they're 5A now.
They're 5A, I think so, yeah.
W.T. White was in our division. So it was W.T. White, Hillcrest, Woodrow Wilson, and I forget.
Okay, everybody, they're talking about high schools.
Talking about high schools in DFW, or in Dallas Independent School District.
Football's king, man.
Football's king. I believe there's 22 high schools.
Friday Night Lights.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was in 12-4A at the time, and I was the district debate champion for that. So when you get that,
we're in trouble.
You get the NFL honors. They're called National Forensic League honors. So because of that, and because I was a minority, I got letters from Columbia, Harvard, all these different places. Not because of my grades, but because of the fact that I was a debate champion. And so I was considering trying to go to an Ivy League school. And then my dad realized that I was not going to get a scholarship for it. He's like, "No, you're not going there. It's either SMU or someplace in state." And I went to the University of Texas, and I was there for 30 minutes. And I was like, "I'm going to go here." There was no question.
Hook 'em horns.
Yeah, hook 'em horns. Like if you go to Austin in 1996. Now it's
it was a good town, man. It's a fun town to play in, man.
It was definitely
so
fun. Austin today is a big giant Starbucks. Austin back in '96, Austin '96 was like what Nashville is. It's just fun, live music,
dude.
barbecue, just amazing time. Free, yeah, exactly. I used to say Austin, Texas in the '90s was a place for the brokest guys in the world to have the absolute most fun drinking dollar beers at different places. Not like Vegas. Vegas is a fun place, but you
pay now.
You pay out the nose for that.
Free months.
You're paying for fun here.
Do you remember South by Southwest? You just walked up. You walked up to South by. You didn't have a wristband. And you didn't show up in a private jet. You just walked up to South by. And now South by Southwest is just like this huge festival.
It's kind of like what Sundance is. It's
correct.
Just, you're excluded in, you're excluded out.
Correct. Right.
So let me ask you this question. Tell me a couple of jobs you had in high school. Just rattle them off. Or high school or college.
So lifeguard, and then I worked for a temp agency. So I was a lifeguard at Wet and Wild, which is a great. It was really cool. Definitely learned a lot.
Arlington.
But here's the main thing. So I worked for Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket in Dallas, and I was an intern there, and that was probably the greatest job I ever had because I happened to be an intern there the semester that the OJ trial was. So this is 95.
95.
He murdered his wife in 94 allegedly, and in 95 he that was when the trial happened. So I was
Thank
there.
God he was convicted because now we've got that cleared up.
Yeah, now we got that cleared up. And by the way, if you want to talk to him about it, you can see him at Jing every Thursday here in Las Vegas. He is there every week. But it's really funny because that was a huge growth thing for me. And then the other internship I had was working for the Lou Sterrett, the courthouse. I used to work there. It's right next to where the Kennedy assassination was. That's where the courthouse is. And if you go there, there's a bunch of judges, they're just county judges or city judges, whatever. And I would go from one courtroom to another, and I'd watch every capital murder trial I could get my hands on. I would just go sit in and just watch the procedure, and it was terrific. Really, really great experience. And then I went to UT Austin, but it was never a decision. It was like in 2007, I was in the military and I visited Vegas for 1 week. 1 week, my decision was over. I was going to move here. No doubt about it whatsoever. I went to Austin in '96 for I was checking out different schools. It was not even a question. I was there for an hour and a half.
What did you study?
So the funny thing, I was in the business school, so management information systems.
MIS,
correct.
Okay.
And I didn't necessarily want that. So
why'd you pick it?
So everyone told me apply to the business school. You should apply because it's a hard business school. It's the only one you have to apply to. So I applied into the Macomb School of Business. I get in there, and then my electives were all astronomy and astrophysics, and I was taking upper level astronomy classes, and my astronomy professors were like, you should switch into the natural sciences. And then I went and looked and found out that guess what most physics professors do? Anybody know? They work in finance. There are more physics.
Actuaries.
They're more.
You're like, nope, not doing that.
Wait, stop. So at this time, you're like possibly a sophomore in college, and
I'm a freshman.
Okay,
I'm a freshman doing MIS, thinking about switching over to RTF, going back into radio, or going into.
But here's what I want to know, right? Because naturally, I ask people what they do for a living and jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
So you're in MIS, trying to get into business school. What are you thinking you're going to be in 10 years or 5 years? What's to what end you're thinking about then?
At this point, I still want to do sports radio. At this point, because I had worked at a sports radio station and I loved it so much, but there's just no money in it. And it's not that there's no money. It's 10 years of being a board op before you get an on-air place and you're barely making
There's no linear line to get there, right?
Correct. And it's not a meritocracy. I used to, so I'll just Sorry, Mom, if you didn't know this. I used to be a DJ at a strip club, and I used to tell my friends.
Dios mío. That's what Mom just said.
Yes, for sure. And I was DJ at a strip club for 4 years before I joined the military because I graduated from high school or college literally the month that MCI, WorldCom, and Enron go out of business. So all the MIS jobs gone.
2001, and all my November 2001.
All the MIS jobs gone. All my friends with MIT degrees or IT degrees gone. They're totally out of work. And I ended up working at this gentleman's club just on a whim, thinking I'm going to do this for 6 months. There's no jobs, right? There's a market crash. Then 9/11 happens. There's no jobs, dude. Right. We have the stock market tanks. It was crazy. So I end up working there. And when I'm there, one of the things I realized is I talked to the guy who had the Friday night shifts, the best shifts, and I was like, "How'd you get these shifts?" I was like, "I've been here for 10 years, 12 years. It's not a meritocracy. You just survive the last guy.
It's tenure, man.
It's tenure. You just survive the last guy. So
it's like a gerontocracy.
Exactly, right? Exactly. But that was one of the situations. And then when I saw 9/11 happen, I was literally at a strip club when I saw it happen. I came in there for the morning meetings, and I'm watching the replays up there, and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. And so that's when I went to Recruiter at Adobe Mall. I don't know if you've been in Austin. It's right there in front of the mall. I go to Adobe Mall. I go to Marine Corps Recruiter. They say we have no spots for officers. I go to an Air Force Recruiter. I said I'd like to be an intel officer, and they're like, you are going to fly an airplane. And so that's how I ended up coming.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. You know, my experience in the military is I just had no time for college. I was 17, and I was going to forge a note and go. Right, and of course, because I'm so brilliant, I picked the dumbest of the forces, right, which is the Army. I don't care. I love the Army today, and they've got a role to do. But when it comes to the natural selection process, I'm just going to keep it real. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I believe that the Air Force is the smartest, then the Navy the second, the Marines third, and the Army fourth. Now, not saying they're not very, very smart people in the Army, but if there's like you've got that 75 IQ and you're from an uninvolved household, they're going to get you in the Army. You know, basic duty soldier or something. But I digress. I digress. And so of course they're going to select you. So you go in now. This is so you got into the. You went to, I guess, Fort Collins?
No, Air Force. So
Fort Lackland first?
Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs, that's what I meant to say.
So I went to UT Austin. So I had a degree from a 4-year university. So I go to officer training school. Yeah, OCS. It wasn't Lackland.
In Colorado?
No. He'd already graduated, right? And so he goes to the recruiter and he wants to go as an officer. So they send him to OCS.
So you go there while you're getting your degree, and I understand.
So when I'm in the military, when I'm in college, I have no intention of joining the military.
Okay.
I graduate, and then I'm working at a gentleman's club. Then 9/11 happens. Then I go to a recruiter. The recruiter explains to me, so OCS is for the Marine Corps. OTS is what the Air Force is.
And where is that?
Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. So it's a 12-week course.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes. Now let's say you guys are like a thoracic heart surgeon or attorney or a chaplain. You go to I go to what's called basic officer training. They go to what's called commissioned officers training. They go to a 4-week course where they learn how to march and literally nothing else. And then you come out, you're a lieutenant colonel. Day one, you're a thoracic heart surgeon, lieutenant colonel.
Yeah, they go in as an 05.
Correct. They come in as 05. Right. We come in as 01s, right? So that's the date. And so in my class is PJs, pilots, navigators, intel officers, finance officers, guys like that. But we all come in as second lieutenants. We are awarded our butter bars. It was May 14th, 2004 would have been that. So 4 years exactly after that, May 14th, 2008, I become a captain. That's how it works. That's how promotion in the Air Force is just like based on tenure.
Okay, and so did you have a certain vengeance about what happened in 9/11 that fueled you?
I felt a certain duty, and then also, my father and my family being proud. I was the first guy in the military in my entire family. No, I had an uncle who was in the Colombian Army, but other than that, like nobody else in my family was ever in the military. And so
Colombian Army, you get 2 paychecks, one from the government, one from the cartel.
I don't know.
I'm just kidding.
No, come on now, come on.
But yeah, I mean, it was just a situation where it was one of these things where you have fear of missing out. Well, this is one of these things where I knew that if I was flying in an airplane over Iraq, there was no point where I was going to say, I wonder if my family's proud of me, or I wonder what my friends are thinking, or I wonder if I'm doing my duty, or I wonder if I could be doing something more. I never had those feelings because I'm literally in a plane going 420 knots over Baghdad. So I didn't, that kind of took all that away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was such a culture shock because I remember laying on my couch one day working at this gentleman's club for, at this point, 3 years and like making really good money, almost all of it cash. And then I remember this guy named Tony Q. He worked at a gentleman's club in San Antonio, and the guy had been there for 24 years and put 2 of his daughters through college. And the guy was like morbidly obese, had this deep smoker's voice. And I just realized like while he's not unhappy, this is all I have to look forward to. Do you understand? Like, it's never going to get any better than this. And I was like, no, don't get me wrong. The guy paid for some houses and put his kids through college. So I'm not complaining. He gets to hang out with pretty girls all the time. But I was just like, man, this is not what I want. So that's why I went to the recruiter. And I always said I was joking with my friends. I was like, if something bad happens, I'll just go back to being a DJ at a strip club. Now, we're past that point.
You got skills.
I'm 43. We're past that point. But that was always something that, I was thinking about doing. So the funny story is, the last day I worked at Sugar's Cabaret in Austin, Texas.
Shout out to Sugars.
Sugars, right? So I swear in the morning of the 19th at Fort Sam Houston in MEPS. I swear in the night of the 20th. I swear in the night of
what month?
The February. It's been February of 2004. So I swear in on the 19th. On the night of the 20th, I work at Sugars, and then I drive to Maxwell Air Force Base. So officially, and hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, I worked at a gentleman's club for one day while I was an 05 in the U.S. military. So and got a paycheck for it. So I don't know how that works.
05?
03.
So here's how it works. Before you go to OTS, you're E5. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Before you go to to OTS, you get paid as an E5.
Right.
E5,
I got confused.
You get paid as an E5 until you get your butter bars. Then you get paid as an O1. That's basically the way it works. I'm sorry, I said
no. I just said, hey man, I'm not
a lieutenant colonel.
I'm like Lieutenant Colonel.
I demoted this guy. Just like, hey, let me bring in Staff Sergeant Sartain. No, anyhow. Yeah. So. Let's talk about you getting into stocks and how that happened.
So my father passes away, and I meet our money manager, and it is
the money manager for your family.
Money manager for a family, and this gentleman, he's a great guy, been friends with my dad since high school, which always alarms me when I hear that, and I'm like, well,
why?
Okay. Because so I'm of the opinion that we should all be educated by Nobel laureates. Have you guys ever seen the Khan Academy? The Khan Academy is it's this guy named Sal Khan. He used to be a hedge fund manager, and he came up with this idea for education should be the best educators should teach via video, and then we should have classroom instruction. I don't necessarily need to trust the guy that I went to school with, right? And by the way, Bill is great. I'm not going to say his name out here, but he was a great guy. But I gave him some advice on some things that I thought we should change. And I looked at the portfolio, and it was extremely dated. Like, it was very clear that the portfolio was built into trends that were in the 1990s. And I was like, some of these things are like not even realistic anymore. Mm-hmm. And then I was getting a lecture about diversification, and I'm like, but Apple is in the S&P 500, so that's not really diversification, is it? Right? If I have Apple and Microsoft and Netflix and Google, and I have the S&P 500. They're the same thing, sort of, right? So it was one of these situations where like little alarm bells were going off. Not that they were doing anything wrong. It's just they weren't doing much. They were just kind of like selling me on something that I just had a weird feeling about it. So I read every book I can on finance, and then I find these guys. The CBOE, the Chicago Board of Option Exchange, they used to have a pit, right? They had these pits for each one of the different equities that they would trade. And these guys were pit traders. And if you ever meet them, or the ladies in there, they're all tall, extremely loud from Chicago, like big, brutal guys, right? So one of them is named Tom Sosnoff. And Tom Sosnoff is, he created the Thinkorswim application that TD Ameritrade bought. I don't know if you guys have ever used it. There's a paper trading application, probably the foremost options trading platform on the planet. He built that, sold it to TD Ameritrade. Once the 08 crash happened, the stock price went down. They took him over. Then he stayed on the board for a while. And then in 2013, he created this thing called Tasty Trade, the financial network. And so I found them. And when I found them, they made this whole thing make sense to me mathematically, right? They didn't promise me profits or anything like that. And I was lucky enough to get mentored by Tom and Tony Batista, who was also another pit trader. If you ever meet these guys, they're 6'3", they like 230, 240, loud as shit.
My size.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
small to Hampton, who's 6'6".
And they literally would tell me these guys would hire offensive linemen to go work in the pit, like former NFL or offensive linemen who were 6'6", because they'd yell louder and they wouldn't get pushed off of their position. But they saw the writing on the wall in 2000. They were like, this isn't going to work. This is all going to become electronic. This buying and selling, yelling shit is not going to work anymore. And so as it became electronic, they create their first platform. Then they create their second platform. I believe 2016, 2017, they create what's called Tastyworks. And now I'm one of the featured traders for Tastyworks. So every time I put a trade on, my trade then goes onto the Tastyworks platform. So all 1 or 200,000 subscribers to that platform can see every one of my trades. And then they introduced me to a hedge fund manager who was looking for a specific style of trading, and that had to do with short options. Basically, a hedge fund manager just for short option contracts or for short option spreads, and that's why they recommended me. It's not that I just happened to specialize in this one particular style of trading, and they introduced me to the guy. The guy meets me. He realizes that I host bikini competitions in Las Vegas. He's kind of confused, like, who the fuck is this guy? And then next thing you know, he asked me some questions, and then I end up explaining to him quantitative analysis and efficient market hypothesis and how stochastic models work and standard deviations. And then he's like, "You're hired." And then I've been managing money for him for the last 3 years.
So I ask all my guests this, and we're at the part of the show where I'm going to ask you, how did crypto find you?
So for me, it was a situation where a buddy of mine named Dan Fleischman, he runs the Elevator boot camp thing in Los Angeles, probably the biggest crypto a mastermind that there is in the whole city. He starts hosting these events, and because he's a buddy of mine, he would invite me. I'd get to come for free, and a bunch of my friends, all self-help guys, are there. Hardcore Closer and Ty Lopez and all these other guys that live in LA that sell online products. They're all there. Ty Lopez is a buddy of mine. He sold a crypto product, and I start reading it, and I know enough about finance to see the wheat from the chaff. I do not believe in TA. I don't believe in technical analysis. So I'm sitting there watching this stuff, and I'm like,
why not?
Because the math doesn't support it. So Fama and French in 1970, they write a paper about efficient market hypothesis. They win the Nobel Prize for it in 2013. And when you go through it and understand, as long as the markets are efficient, meaning we all, like, the reason why Warren Buffett doesn't beat the S&P 500 anymore is because Warren Buffett in the 1960s had an asymmetrical amount of information. I'm sorry, I'm talking about fundamental analysis.
No, keep going.
Yeah. So but he was able to hire private investigators in order to find out stuff about stocks that was asymmetric, meaning you or I didn't know as a retail trader, but he knew because he had the ability to find out some of these things. And as time progressed and he got to the dot-com bubble, you start seeing Berkshire Hathaway starts following further and further behind because the asymmetry of information is gone now. I know just as much as he does. Yeah. Now what's his advantage? He's still Warren Buffett. He goes to Salomon Brothers, and as soon as he invests, well, now everybody jumps in and he talks his book.
Right. He's a market maker of sorts.
For sure. He talks his book, and so, if Warren Buffett is involved, then I'll get involved.
Modern day E.F. Hutton. Right?
Exactly. But for the most part, what you'll find is that with the exception of guys like Jim Simon or Lynch or people like that, those guys are market makers, and they're able to beat the market on a regular basis because they have like billions and billions of dollars to take the opposite side of your trade. But other than those people, the guys at the top 5 hedge fund producers this year are the bottom 5 in 5 years from now. And the reason why is because you can't pick market direction. And that's essentially what the hypothesis was, which is why I sell stock options instead of doing that. And the thing with crypto for me was, like, I was really excited about the amount of implied volatility in each one of these different things. And I also think blockchain is going to change the world. I personally do, the technology of blockchain. But the issue I had with the market was, number one, there is no liquid options market, and number two, I can't short any coin. I can't short any coin as a retail trader. Right now, I can't. And the only listed device or instrument that I can use is the one I believe the OEX has in Chicago, where it's 5 Bitcoins for one futures contract, which is insane. And you need 90% notional in order to trade it. So it means what is right now, it's at 40K or something like that, 42, 44K. 45, something like, we'll just say 40. 40 times 5 is 200,000. I need $180,000 notional to trade one contract. So this is for retail traders. This
That's
is
asymmetric.
Yeah, this is insane. Like, this is ridiculous. But they're so worried about currency risk that they're not going to let you really trade this product. So it felt to me like the people that I worked with from the traditional finance world were very resistant to the crypto world, right?
Right.
And so I got more and more into crypto, started learning more about it, and I went to the guys who run my fund, and I said to them, when there's a liquid options market, we could be the first people to offer a fund for this. I think because one of the things is, right now, if I own Bitcoin, I can't hedge Bitcoin. I can't. There is literally no way to do it. There's no negative.
Well, an argument could be made is if you actually don't own Bitcoin, you're shorting Bitcoin. That's other than that.
Well, I think you're neutral Bitcoin if you don't own Bitcoin, as far as shorting it. I mean, you're saying that, but when you say that, you're saying that Bitcoin has to go up. Like, there's no other alternative
I know, but I've thought about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about that, I just want to, I love your oratory. It's great.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this now. I believe everyone says, I can't wait till the United States gets a Bitcoin ETF because that's when the price is going to go up. David James believes that's when Wall Street's going to start manipulating the price. Comment.
I mean, I believe in an efficient market. I don't think the Wall Street can manipulate anything. Like, the idea that, so right now the crypto marketplace is $1.8 trillion. It at one point was over $2 trillion. I don't think one person can manipulate the whole thing even right now.
Let's talk about what Robinhood recently did with the AMC short, right? With Citadel.
Well, they didn't allow you to get out. Like
that's manipulation.
Correct, but that's not Wall Street. That's Robinhood's. Okay, so just so we're clear, I work for a real online brokerage called Tastyworks. Robinhood, no offense for anybody out there, Robinhood is for the amateurs. If you guys are out there still using Robinhood, unfortunately, please switch over to Tastyworks.
You're going to get wrecked.
You are not only are you going to get wrecked, they have no interest in. They're already front running your orders, and not like you cannot afford free. Please, guys, stop using Robinhood. Please, like you're basically playing with a big old bungo bat, trying to play baseball. When everyone else has an aluminum bat. Play with the professionals. Move over to a real brokerage or at least Tastyworks.
So what you're saying is, if there was a bona fide ETF by a real company,
I don't think that anyone would manipulate it. No, what I think would happen. But I'm not worried about the ETF. That's not the issue. The issue is what happens when there's an options market. When there's an options market, think about what happened. Now I can make money off the volatility, right? Options are based off what? They're based off time, theta decay, delta, volatility, right?
You want it to go up and down.
Exactly. The Vega from Vega or volatility is what inflates the option price, right? So now I can take these.
You pay based on the implied volatility.
You pay. So now what happens is, because we have an instrument there that I can use to hedge and to get rid of some of the risk, the underlying in and of itself becomes less risky. And so I think really there's so much money to be made in stock options on cryptocurrency if there could ever be and I understand LedgerX does have an options market on crypto, but it's not liquid. It's not liquid at all. There's not nearly enough contracts traded. So what I'm saying is, when this becomes listed and there's actual products, so if there's an ETF on crypto and then there's an options market on that ETF, that's what I'm looking at right now. But as far as manipulation, no, I don't believe Wall Street has the necessity or the ability. Again, yes, if you put enough billionaires together, could you move it a couple of points? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to like openly manipulate Bitcoin. The other thing is, an ETF is going to do what? So like SPX mimics the S&P 500. It basically takes the 500.
You can buy portions.
Yeah, but no, SPX you can't buy. SPX is an index. SPX is the result of a math equation.
Right.
SPY is the ETN that mimics FD, and so is /ES, which is the futures contract. They mimic what SPX says, right? And same thing with Deutsche Bank has a couple of like FXI and Asher. These are products created by a bank in Germany to mimic what the Shanghai and Hong Kong Stock Exchange do. But you can't own the Shanghai and Hong Kong Stock Exchange. You can't do that.
Right.
So we're there to mimic. So the idea that we're going to create an ETF that's based off what cryptocurrency is doing, the ETF does not manipulate the cryptocurrency. It's the other way around.
Okay,
does
so
that make sense?
Okay, that's fine. So let's talk about MSTR, MicroStrategies.
Okay.
All right. So some can and have argued that in effect is a pseudo Bitcoin ETF.
Explain to me MicroStrategies.
MicroStrategies, basically, they've got, I don't know how many, several $1 billion worth of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Are you familiar with them?
Right, but Bitcoin's market cap is $800 billion.
Right.
So several billion isn't enough to move the Bitcoin market.
No, we're not talking about moving the Bitcoin market. We're talking about how. Well, if you're not familiar with this play, what I've noticed is that you can actually get options, right? Put or calls on MicroStrategies. Right.
Okay. So MicroStrategies is a listed a company that you're saying that I can buy puts or calls, and they mimic.
No, they own $6 billion worth of Bitcoin on their balance sheet.
So that's great. So what I would do, in fact, I'll do this right after we leave here. I'm going to hit up Tom and Tony, and I'm going to say, can I get a beta correlation between MicroStrategy? Excuse me, guys. Between MicroStrategies and Bitcoin. If I can get above a 0.85 correlation, then you're correct. Then I would do that, and I would look for what's open interest on the stock options for that. That might be a way to do it. But as of right now, we've been looking for something that has a super higher correlation to Bitcoin, and we can't really find anything. And the problem is, if you can't find something with options that has a correlation to Bitcoin, you can't hedge Bitcoin.
Like GBTC. You can't, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. They can't put any options on that.
Right. So, but there's no options on Bitcoin now, like liquid option. What I mean is 5 cents between the bid and ask. That's what I mean when I say liquid.
My only one regret is that you're going to go find out, and I can't tell my audience until I actually have you back, which is absolutely going to happen. So I wanted to ask you, we're recruiters, and certainly you don't lack any confidence about your ability or your brilliance. So what type of job could we possibly offer you? If somebody was to say this, we need this kind of person. I've got my ideas, but I want to hear it come out of your mouth.
For me, I I'm trying to think that there's like three things I do. One thing is I manage money, but I try to stay out of the queep. Like in the U.S. military, queep.
What a great word.
Right. Queep is me flying the airplane is my job. Me running the planning office is the other shit that I have to do on top of that. I do not like the administrative part of a hedge fund. I do not like handling the legal issues of a hedge fund. I like just the math, right? So that's the main thing. So as a technician, there's a great book called The E-Myth Revisited where they talk about...
We both read it when we went into business.
Yep.
I told them how to read it. So you talk about Robert Gerber. You're speaking the love language. Technician, manager, entrepreneur.
I am a technician. I fly an airplane. I manage I do the mathematics for the hedge fund. So for that, for sure. For podcast hosting, this is another thing that I obviously do. There's several. I'm a guest on several of them, and then I have my own show that's hopefully just taken off. We got our second episode out yesterday. That's the other thing. So I host the red carpet for a bunch of charity events, and then I host a bunch of pageants, and then sometimes I do interviews for different people. That would be the second thing, and then the third thing is. I forget. I rescue cats. That's probably my third.
Do you really
specialty.
rescue cats?
I do rescue cats.
How many cats do you have?
Right now, 2. I had 3. I've had 8. And then my best friend, she has 13 right now. Oh God, I shouldn't say that. Sorry. State of
put her on blast. What's her name? If she
no, because it's not totally legal to have 13 in Clark County.
You mean your imaginary friend?
My imaginary friend is 13, and then my other imaginary friend, she has 7. And so I'm actually gonna rescue 1 or 2 more. Basically, I foster them, and then they go back to whoever.
We kind of started that way with little Yorkies. Right, in foster, but we live in a small place in Carlsbad. But anyhow, so I want to talk to you about something else. I remember somebody was showing me, another podcaster in town. He was showing me that there was this school that was happening in Las Vegas, and if I sign you up for the school and you pay $1,200, well, I get 10%, and then if you sign him up, you get 10%. I get 5%. You're totally a multi-level marketing.
Yes,
and their big thing was, and you in crypto, it's all crypto. And you will get the same play on the 6 and 7 and 8 figure trades that these guys are doing. And I just said to the guy, there are so many people that are going to get wrecked because a strategy of somebody who's putting $150 million in a position, that could be for 10 minutes, right? And you just, he did it, so I'm doing it. And so there's the whole time delivery. Can you comment on things like that?
It sounds to me like he's building his own front running. Right.
You're right.
Talk about like he literally.
I want our audience to know. I mean, this is the most technical interview we've ever had, and I let it go because you're just so eloquent of making people understand at such a high level what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So explain to our audience.
I'm curious, Travis. Do you know what front running is?
I do not know.
Okay, so just imagine if I'm going to buy a certain XYZ Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, okay?
Okay.
I know I'm going to buy it, but what I do is I know I can convince you to buy it first. I'm talking my book. I love XYZ, so I get you to buy it. But right before you buy it, I buy it. I get it at a cheaper price than you, and then you raise my price. Does that make sense?
That's right.
Sounds to me like an MLM where I would do the exact same thing, and I'd have a bunch of people, and I would tell them, man, we have this incredible play.
So to our audience, do you hear that? If someone's saying, hey, pay up and come to the school, and if you get other people to come to the school, don't walk, run from this, okay? Because you will qualify at the bank for the Fool and the Money program. All right, so going on. So you said that blockchain is going to change the world.
Absolutely.
Talk about it.
So the idea, let's separate blockchain from Bitcoin, okay?
Yeah,
for those of you who are listening
necessary.
here.
Yeah, this is excellent.
You can use blockchain for voting, and I don't know how we have it. In fact, to me, nothing speaks more to the corruption of American politicians right now that they are not killing each other to ensure the sanctity of our voting process through blockchain. It is beyond logical. Any argument against using blockchain for voting is an illogical argument.
So nuts.
And there is no math or science.
They also have to agree to actually have IDs, right? So they got to do that too.
But keep going.
Correct. There is literally no logical argument against it. But you can use blockchain for any kind of voting or any kind of record keeping. So for those of you who don't understand,
unless you want it corrupt, then that's a logical argument.
That's a logical argument for
voter suppression or whatever one's going to say.
Correct. Right. So like literally, not only that. Now what happens is you can vote from your phone at this point. You can use biometric data in order to ensure your identity, and then you can vote using blockchain. Therefore, what happens is it's not a board of electioneers, people who are sanctifying or certifying the election. It is literally millions of people, millions of nodes, all agreeing this transaction did happen,
right.
and David did vote for this candidate. Therefore, it cannot be faked. And there's one universal ledger on which his vote for this candidate is there for all eternity,
immutable,
and immutable, completely irrevocable. Like, so if we do that, that's one thing that'll change. So using blockchain by having basically you and I are going to go exchange tickets, and instead of me doing it and you pulling a gun on me and robbing me, it's like you and me are exchange tickets, and there are literally 1 million people watching the transaction between you and I, and they certify the transaction. That's what blockchain is. And because of that, it's brilliant. But the problem is there is, like what Warren Buffett talks about, there is no moat. There is really literally nothing that's stopping the three of us from going and learning enough coding in the next couple weeks and building our own currency.
On blockchain.
Our own currency. So because of that, there is no moat. And I believe as of right now, there are 11,000 coins on CoinMarketCap. And it is a little frightening to me that the entire market cap is $1.8 trillion, and 800 billion of that is in one coin. And then I believe another 400 billion is in the second
Bitcoin
coin.
and Ethereum, respectively.
Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then the third one is Binance Coin. Binance Coin is now the third highest market cap.
And basically, that's going to end so badly.
Yeah, but that's, but
it's the native coin, their utility coin.
Correct.
Right.
So now we're separating the coins from the technology. Bitcoin, great. I'm sorry, blockchain, great. As far as Bitcoin, the problem is while I love these coins and I love these entrepreneurs, I find myself surrounded by I was like, hey, brother, weren't you selling me a Forex product 2 years ago? I'm confused. Wait, that's the same guy who was selling me the penny stocks thing. Oh, wait, you were trying to sell me annuities 4 years. I remember you trying to sell me this annuities product. I was trying to sell term life insurance. Wait a second. Didn't you try to get me in this MLM? Wait a second. Didn't you rent that Lamborghini? Isn't that a fake watch? It's the same guys. It's this bro culture that comes in, and I don't trust these guys. Like I just don't. Inherently, the best thing that I think the crypto community could do would be to shed these individuals who came. No offense, I like the guy Tim Sykes. If Tim Sykes is in your industry, that's because specifically they are looking to fake it till you make it. Tim Sykes, I've heard him say these words out loud. He's like, literally, he will do whatever he has to do from a marketing perspective to sell his product. I do not want these individuals in my space.
Sounds like Vince from ShamWow.
I don't know who that is. Oh, ShamWow. Yeah, ShamWow. Exactly. I don't want these individuals in my space. I think they hurt the space, and I think that's one of the reasons why traditional finance has been slow to adopt this technology. Right. I still talk to old man yelling at clouds about Bitcoin. My fund manager, he's not a huge fan of it. I have to sit there and explain it to him, and he just doesn't give a shit. And then when I start talking about NFTs, oh my God, the glazed over look on his face, like NFTs, I don't give a shit about this, and it just becomes crazy. But then I go back and I explain, like, no, if you go back fundamentally, it is similar to regular equities. It's just not regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Give my audience, right, and the audience, they're not. Speak at their level in 2 minutes what NFTs are and how they could understand the concept.
Yeah, so non-fungible tokens. So basically, if I have a dollar bill, like these dollar bills right here, if I have a $100 bill and I'm like, hey, bro, can you give me that $100 bill that you have, and then I'll give you another $100 bill? You don't care because they're all fungible. You can switch these $100 bills back and forth. It doesn't make any difference. But if I have a token and it is the only token of Michael Jordan hitting that jump shot against the Cleveland Cavaliers against Craig Elo, and it's one of one, it's the only one that exists, I could sell that for $600,000. So a lot of you're like, no, I can just look that up on YouTube. Correct, but you don't have just like you could go on Google right now and you could save a picture of the Mona Lisa to your phone, but you don't own the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa in and of itself that exists in the Louvre in Paris, France right now, that Mona Lisa is worth countless hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe $1 billion is what what the Mona Lisa is worth. The actual Mona Lisa, you understand that the physical owning of that Mona Lisa exists. Well, just imagine something physical, except that it's digital, but it's only one of one or 5 of 5 that exists. Luka hitting that step back, Doncic hitting that step back over the Clippers, I believe that one sold for like 40, 50,000. The NFTs for that, several of the Michael Jordan NFTs. So for me, I'm into NFTs just because of basketball. I'm a top shot in NFTs, but you can do it. The first tweet is an NFT. I have a feeling like some of my friends have podcasts. They're turning their podcast into NFTs. I work for a charity called Babes in Toyland. They're going to turn a lot of their programs into NFTs. And so these are just tokens, not necessarily like
Which
coins.
I want you to talk about next, because if everybody's doing an NFT, right, then where is and isn't the value? When do we get to the point where now it's just the world's largest swap meet that you just can't see everything in?
So in any complex adaptive system, what you're going to have is like there's been a lot of attempts to, like, for instance, Wish tried to do what Amazon's doing, and they're doing it just not quite the same way. And there's different attempts like Uber and Lyft to try to do something, but for every Uber and Lyft there's about 1,000 failed apps that tried to do that. I think what'll happen is you're going to have a few different spaces where the NFTs are going to be worthwhile. I have friends of mine that are like C and D list celebrities have their own NFTs. They live in Los Angeles.
Is John a C or a D celebrity? John Orlando's
a B or an A. I mean, he's Vegas. He's an A. He's an A. John Orlando.
In Summerlin, he's an A+.
In Summerlin, he's an A+ for sure. Don't even have to wait when you go to Jing with John Orlando. So like again, going back to that. The thing is, I have friends of mine who are like, these guys are not celebrities. They just have a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram, and they're launching NFTs of themselves, and they're like having these games where they're trying to pump up and down each other's stock price for their NFTs, and it's just so crazy. But the thing is, eventually, when we talk about institutional money, is it going to put itself in there? I think it's just like with cryptocurrency. You're going to have a few people up at the top, and then it's going to bifurcate into this like very small group of 11,000 coins.
There it is.
And the same situation is going to happen with NFTs. You're going to have a few reputable NFT distributors, and the rest of them are just going to be silly. Like, listen, if there's an NFT for the December 1953 issue of Playboy with Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Manson on Playboy? Wow, what a freak.
Marilyn Monroe. If there's an actual NFT for that, and it's like 10 out of 10, that's worth money. I absolutely agree with you. If you had a digital perfectly rendered digital copy of that, and that it had like the token literally had like some icon showing that this is the only one that you own, I can understand that because you're speaking people's language who understand in 1953 when Marilyn Monroe did Playboy, that was a huge thing. So now I can get that. But for some people, the other ones, like the first ever tweet sold for 600,000, something like that. Jack Dorsey.
Jack Dorsey's right.
Sold his first ever tweet. I don't need to own that for 600,000, but I get it. I understand why somebody wants to own it. So again, there's sneakerheads. There's people who are into looking at videos of feet. There are people who are into all kinds of fetishes. Some people maybe just want to own a tweet.
After the show, I wanted to show you my sneakerhead collection.
Okay,
my NFTs. Hey, so seriously, we got to pay some bills. So let's just go to our sponsor. And who is that, Travis?
Blockchainrecruiters.net.
Yeah. Did we do that already?
Yeah, we did it already.
I'm so captivated by this guy talking. I forgot everything. That's just you're all serious platitudes. I'm so grateful, and I can't wait for you to come back on the show again. So here's in wrap up. I want you to speak to our audience, and you've probably had a lot of people. Well, what do I do with my money? I've got it in bonds, right? Or I've got it in a mattress. So as it relates to crypto, just from a very macro point of view, talk to our audience about what they should and shouldn't do as it relates to how they get awareness.
You're not advising. You're not advising,
right? So from my standpoint, at this point, because you can't hedge, I would not have more than 5% of my total investable assets in cryptocurrency. Just my opinion. My friends in Los Angeles would hit me over the head for saying this. They'd be like, "What are you talking about? Take everything you have, buy Bitcoin now. It's going to $1 million tomorrow." And I'm like, "Yeah,
it could also go to 3 tomorrow."
Like you're talking your book, brother. Like they don't know.
Wait, let me speak to the audience. Okay, you're talking. David James watched Bitcoin go from $100 to $3. I watched it go to 1,000. To 300 and stay there for several years. I watched it go from 20,000 to 3,000. I watched it go to 64,000 all the way down to 29, 28, right? And now currently it's pushing 50, right? So what he's talking about is you shouldn't go all in because for a period of time, your $100,000 could be $17,000.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And that's what you're talking about.
For sure.
The volatility.
And for me, I know this is disappointing if a lot of people hear this, but at some point, nobody wants to think this, but if Bank of America comes out with a coin, right? Zelle is kind of like their answer to
Facebook,
crypto. Or DM. If Facebook or Instagram, or no, specifically like let's say Facebook or Tesla or Amazon come out with a coin that's backed by that company's stock, now all of a sudden you can break into this market with something that can disrupt what Bitcoin has right now. Bitcoin is a speculative asset. It still exists, but like it can still be disrupted. It means it doesn't have to go to 1 million. It could, but it doesn't have to. And then of course at some point, now what happens when we get to 21 million coins and we stop mining? Or do we need to keep mining? We're not going to.
Yeah, well, that's another question. How are they going to actually push the transactions? Why would the miners mine?
Why would the miners mine? I think there's plenty of miners to push the transactions right now. If you had it's like, if you got rid of 99% of the actors in Hollywood, would you have enough actors? Yes, you would. If you got rid,
you just go to the restaurants.
Yeah, if you got rid
but that's like getting rid of the referees and getting the recheck referees in there for football, right? I mean, it's not the same.
Well, but there's not 10 million referees, but there's 10 million
or people who are moving from all over the world to get their big break as a referee.
Yeah, and there are 10 million people mining, more than 10 million people mining. If you had 1 million people mining, that'd be plenty of people, I think, to verify the transactions. So I don't think that's going to be necessarily the issue. But for me, it would be not more than 5%. And then the other thing I would tell you guys is to become educated in the mathematical aspects of the different types of markets.
Talk about that.
So for me, there's Dr. Jim Schultz. He's a finance professor. He teaches this thing called the Options 101 crash course on tastytrade.com, and it's completely free. I recommend people start there because when you learn options, you have to learn the equities that are underneath. So options are derivatives, that's what we call them, and they're derivatives of equities, right? So we want to learn the options and the equities. We want to learn the option and then the ETF. We want to learn the options on the future and then the future itself. And then eventually we want to learn the options and then we want to learn the crypto that the option will be based on. Eventually, we're going to have derivatives on crypto at some point.
Correct.
So let's learn about how futures are different from ETFs, or different from ETNs, or different from regular listed equities. And then let's learn about unlisted equities. So even like let's learn about cryptocurrency and different things like that. And then let's learn about things like, for instance, IYR mimics the housing market, right? We might do that. Or / a ZB, it's bonds, right? ZN is notes. We can look / CL. We can buy and sell oil contracts as a retail trader. We can do that. And if we can't afford an entire contract, we can actually do an option spread and for way less money and still own part of that, right? There's a bunch of different ways that we can learn, a bunch of different instruments that we can learn to use. Let's learn those instruments first. Let's understand the actual mathematics behind it, and then let's take a second to actually like appreciate an efficient market hypothesis. And when you do that, you come to the realization that no one can predict the future. And when you see that, I personally think that the guy who you've been giving your family's money to for the last 30, 40 years, who works for T. Rowe Price or whoever, doesn't know anything more than you. And I think as we progress forward and as you have more access on the internet to different capabilities, different more information, like Bloomberg terminals, absolutely useless. I'm sorry. Anyone who owns a Bloomberg terminal, what a waste of money. For you to have second and third level quotes for no reason whatsoever.
You sound kind of indecisive.
No, I mean, it's just complete waste of money. The idea that you're going to be able to look at the open interest and be able to determine stock direction, there should be a scientific study on that. Oh, wait, there has been for the last 40 years, and they all prove technical analysis doesn't work. So when you see that and you see people are winning Nobel Prizes for talking about Brownian motion and a random walk and efficient market hypothesis, then you come to the realization nobody knows anything. So I prefer a quantitative approach, which is why I sell stock options. And then when I look at crypto, I look at it for what it is right now. It is a speculative asset. Blockchain, incredible. But blockchain and Bitcoin are two different things. There's blockchain in Bitcoin, but it's not the only place where you can use blockchain. Right now, Bitcoin to me is a speculative asset. What I mean by that is when it was at 28 and it went up to 64, there was no new feature added to Bitcoin to make it 3 times or 2 times the value.
Other than the demand.
Correct.
Which is not a feature in itself.
It's not a feature. It's a speculative asset. So as long as you understand that, that's not bad or good. It's just understand it's a speculative asset and stop listening to the guy, like you said, at 7-Eleven with the tattoo on his neck telling you how it's going to go to $1 million.
Doge is going to go to $1 million.
Yeah, how Doge is going to go to $1 million. He doesn't know anything. No one knows anything.
And the worst thing you can do, I'm just going to jump in, is just buy a coin because you think it's going to go up because someone said so and you've been in the space a week. So I always say this just for fundamentals. Get Saifedean's book, The Bitcoin Standard, or get Jimmy Song's book, The Little Bitcoin Book, and understand what Bitcoin is and why Bitcoin is, okay? And I'm not saying that Bitcoin's the end all, but this will give you the fundamental understandings of the hows and the whys of things. Then you can start doing your own internal inquiries and asking why. Michael Sartain, you've been such a guest. I usually don't let people talk as technical as you do, but it was just so profound. And for all my guests, you can replay the tape. You can Google what he's talking about. I mean, I think you're absolutely amazing, and I'm not giving you false platitudes.
I appreciate that. One thing that I have a question for you guys. Tether. I thought that Tether was kind of I'm seeing it now, and it seems to be like an institutional product that people are using right now to mimic the U.S. dollar.
Or a fraud.
So that's my question. So that was the thing that I understood when I was really deep into the space, like say 2 years ago, was the idea that Tether did not have enough in reserves in order to be able to.
It still doesn't.
It still doesn't. But,
And
the market cap has jumped up to several billion dollars.
And
62.
And the reason why we know that is because basically it's a Bahamian thing, right? And they won't release that on their balance sheet. But if you go to the Federal Reserve of Bahamas, that money had to go in and out one way or the other, and it's not there. But unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Yeah, no problem.
And next time I'll tell you my hypothesis on why Tether is a fraud, but also why it's not going to affect the price of Bitcoin when it crashes, because it's 68 billion Bitcoin, 800 billion. So think about it like a 10% correction, no big deal, and it's not going to happen. Travis, my engineer, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
David Hampton, Robo Recruiter. This was awesome. I'm going to say it again. Michael Sartain, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man.
And I
Much
really
appreciate it.
had some questions. And we're going to talk about this MSTR 0.85, whatever.
I love it. Please, I would love to see what the beta correlation is.
And everybody knows I'm David James, the Job Whisperer. And remember, everybody, get whispered.